session, we don't think we did record accidentally, so we're gonna,
So now
It just said it's being recorded.
yeah, I did that.
good morning, Craig.
Huh.
That little button right there.
Okay, so I'm good.
Yeah. Oh, for some reason.
I know Jane said she was getting on, so it is 8:30. We'll give, why'd it get fuzzy?
Autofocus.
All right. How's everybody's morning? Did you guys, and so you enjoyed your one thing or your Win with Sellers class yesterday? I know you guys are muted.
Yes, we enjoyed it.
What was your one thing that you left with your action item, Donna?
You know, most of ours we do, but I did take away about maybe doing the invitation to submit a new bid. And I learned something yesterday because I didn't really realize that it was fair housing violation on writing those buyers writing those letters.
Well, I'm not sure what you
The
mean,
sellers.
but what Marty said that he did at the end of the class was he asked you guys to review each chapter, your one thing from each chapter,
yeah.
and then choose your one thing of the 7 chapters.
Yes, and mine was part of lead generation still.
So you have one thing surrounds lead generating for listings.
Around, yeah, yes.
Craig, are you able to
Or my
unmute?
past clients.
I don't know if Craig's on mute, so he may not be able to answer. Rhonda, what was your one thing? Do you remember?
Wow, I had a lot of one things. My first one thing is to, well, I definitely am going to put together a phenomenal pre-listing package, but probably my most challenging one thing that I have on my list, the 7, is to discover what he called lead generating levers. What levers, what methods of lead generation can I totally just dominate for my business?
So you're talking about for your real estate agent business, or not for our agents?
Just in general.
In general, lead generation levers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what all the methods are and what method is going to, what methods would be like my top methods that I can totally like feel confident about and feel more comfortable with, you know, but I need to discover that. I haven't, you know, like there's all these ways to lead gen, but what is going to work best for you?
Okay, that's a good topic. Craig, can you hop on and answer? He seems so far to be muted. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and dive into the material. This is our last book club, so we are on page. Wait, I'm on the wrong page. Hold on a moment. We are on page 208, and it's called The Journey. So in the red here, it says, to get through the hardest journey, we need to take one step at a time, but we must keep stepping. And so as you wrap up the concept of the one thing, I love this exercise on 208. And even though I had read this book before, one of my coaches in the last year or so had me do a really powerful exercise on this. And also in Bold, you guys do this where you imagine running into yourself when you're older and you talk to yourself. So my coaching, and actually on my coaching call yesterday, did this. So your step is called the one thing. And then at the bottom of 208, I want you to do something. This is Gary saying this. I want you to close your eyes and imagine your life as big as it could possibly be, as big as you have ever dared to dream, and then some. Can you see it? So the exercise, if you actually take the time to stop, close your eyes, and imagine yourself in the biggest life you can imagine. And I think Roxanne will put it something like from one of the scriptures where if you can imagine it, it's possible, right? So it first starts with you imagining the best version of yourself. And if you fast forward in your mind and you sit there and imagine it, then if you could imagine it, it's possible. And then Gary in the book is about going further than you've ever thought. So Gary says at the top of 209, now open your eyes and listen to me. You have the capacity to move towards this this version of yourself. When you go, what you go for is as vast as you could possibly envision. You'll be living the biggest life you could live. Living large is that simple. So he says in the middle of 209, let me share a way that you could do this. Write down your current income. So if you guys don't know your current income, go ahead and write what you just sort of think that your current income is. So I'm going to be totally transparent with you guys because I can think about the most income I've ever made. And so I think sometimes they'll say that's a bit of our financial calculator. You'll talk about that in bold because you've allowed that to be the income you'll live with. And I've been growing. And so last year, as I looked at it, just because I just did my taxes not too long ago, I made sure they're right and turned them in. I made a little over 80,000 last year. And I don't think my rental income is in that. I don't know. I'd have to ask my accountant. But I'm just going to say that my position is a higher paying job than that. And yet I control my destiny by bonuses for profit and bonuses for recruiting. And so my base salary and what I ended up with when I glanced at that tax return was 80,000. And so I go, okay, I've made much more than that in my life. And I also know right now this job I'm sacrificing for the short term what I will do later. So anyway, so Barry says here on page 209, let me share a way you do this. When you write down your current income, so for me, I'm going to use 80. You guys use whatever you think your current income is, and then multiply it by a number. The number 2, the number 4, the number 10, or the number 20. It doesn't matter. Pick one. So for me, I picked one because my brain decides which one I want right away. Could I double it? Could I quadruple it? Because at some point your brain believes you. So I went ahead and just immediately chose 10, and I said, okay, if I made 80,000 last year, if I multiplied that by 10, it would be 800,000. And then it says, he just says it doesn't matter. Pick any of these numbers. And so I want you guys to actually do this exercise where you write down a number and choose how you want to multiply it. Write down the new number. So for me, it's 800,000. Looking at it and ignoring whether you're frightened or excited, ask yourself, will my current actions get me to this number in the next 5 years? So I have to say, are my current actions, Anna, going to get you to 800,000 in the next 5 years? I'm 52 years old. Could I be making 800,000 by the time I'm, whatever that math is, 57, by the me that is showing up every day? And if I say yes, then double it again. At some point, I will say no. So if let's say I multiplied it by 2, or my current actions right now could get me to 160. Yeah, I kind of think so. Close enough. By 4, could I quadruple my income being the version I am? I'm probably going to say no to that based on what I know about myself over the last, I'm in team leader role 2 years now. And so as soon as I say no, then you make your actions match your answer. You could live it. At some point, your brain will say, no, my actions are not supporting that. Doesn't mean what I'm making isn't supporting it. It's talking about my actions around it. So he says, using the personal earnings as an example, this thinking can apply to your spiritual life, physical condition, your personal relationships, your career achievement, business success, anything else that matters to you. It's only when you imagine a bigger life that you can ever hope to have one. Donna, what is your thoughts from that?
Well, and I'm looking at probably chapter 18 a little bit differently and not putting the money with it.
Well, he's
at any
saying
time, I want
any part of
things
your life
can change. But the only way that, we spend a lot of time working to make a living and choosing that over making a life and building a life. So if you build your one thing to your life goal, then again, that domino will follow down. And if it's making 80,000 and the goal part of that, but I think what he's saying in this is that we want to look back and make sure we have no regrets at the end of our life. Live your life to minimize the regrets that we might have at the end.
That's going to be the content of this chapter, right? So he first talks about imagining it. And say you guys imagine retiring, or say you imagine sending a child to college, or say you imagine helping your parents in some way. Maybe you imagine, I used to have an agent in my accountability group who their one thing was to buy a house for someone else, and they didn't even know who the person was going to be. They just knew that that was their desire. was to give back. Well, how would you give back? Well, I would buy a house for someone. Well, who would it be for? Well, I would find the person. And then that was always in their one thing was, what are they doing today in alignment with that goal? So it says
Sure.
extraordinary
Right.
results require you to go small. And then as you go to page 210, second paragraph, your life is like this. You don't get a fully mature one. You get a small one and the opportunity to grow it if you want to. Think small and your life is likely to stay small. Think big and your life has a chance to grow. The choice is yours. If you choose a big life, you'll have to go small to get there. You must find your one thing. So that next paragraph, kind of in the middle, I'm saying, he's not saying there's only one thing. He's saying at any moment in time, there can only be one thing. So right now, today, there's one thing, and it is launching towards the best you could possibly be. What is the best version of yourself? And is your actions in alignment with becoming that, moving towards that? So he talks on bottom of 210, actions build on action, habits build on habit, success builds on success. The right domino knocks down another and another, another. When you want extraordinary results, you look for a domino to start with. Big lives ride the powerful wave of chain reactions and are built sequentially. So on page 211, only those who will risk going too far can possibly find out how far they can go. You have to decide it, right? I don't know if he underlined this or I underlined this, kind of in the middle of that page. It says, the journey towards extraordinary results will be built above all else on faith. So only when you have faith in your purpose and priorities that you'll seek to put your one thing out, your one thing. Once you're certain, you know it. So how many of us go through a big part of our life not certain what we want? Then it's hard to go be sure you're in alignment with it. So at the bottom of page 211, to Donna's point, he's going to be talking about living a life without regret. On 212, it says, 20 years from now, you'll be disappointed by things that you didn't do, more so than the things you did do. Throw off the bowlines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds with the sails, explore, dream, and discover. That was Mark Twain. In the middle of that page, what would you say? What would an older, wiser version of yourself say? Go live your life, right? Have a full, beautiful, purposeful life. Are you going to say, I'm glad I did it, or I wish I had? The bottom of 212, a life worth living might be measured in many ways, but the one way that stands above all others is a life with no regrets. So John Maxwell will talk about the only regret usually you have is having not tried. And then I don't regret, like I don't want to go do a do-over. There's many things I would change, and I wish I would have figured it out faster or done it in a different way. And yet that's the journey to the me I am today, is on path to become my best me. All those failures where I hate myself really is a fail forward towards the better me. And all those grateful for the moments that I didn't do it right, a chance to do it better and be grateful for it. So he says on page 213, kind of in the middle, he's got some stuff in italics. The 5 common things that he heard when Gary studied people at the end of their life and read books about it. I wish I'd let myself be happier. Too late in life, they realized happiness is a choice. I wish I would have stayed in touch with my friends. Too often they failed to give them time and effort. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings, which is what I'm so excited about Fierce Conversations coming up. Too frequently shut mouths and shuttered feelings weighed too heavy. I wish I wouldn't have worked so hard. Too much time spent making a living over building a life, and feeling remorseful about that. And down further in the page, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. So that kind of causes me a little stirring of emotion. I don't know about you guys. And then as he goes on 214, in bold there, success is an inside job. He's still talking about to live life with regrets. So he tells a story here in the book about a father and a son. And part of that is feeling like you were there for your family. And a lot of people have that as part of their thing. And so he's really just talking about at the bottom of 216, success is an inside job. Put yourself together. Your world falls into place. When you bring purpose to your life, knowing your priorities, achieving a high productivity and priority that matters most every day, Your life makes sense and extraordinary becomes possible. All success in life starts within you. You know what to do. You know how to do it. The next step is simple. You are the first domino. So nobody else can do it but you, right? Then in 218, putting the one thing to work. So now what? In delay there lies no plenty. Shakespeare. So you've read the book. You got it. You understand that it's the one thing. You maybe don't know what the one thing is, but you're starting to think of it. So for brevity's sake, he's shortening the focusing question to what's my one thing. He's saying be sure to add, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier and unnecessary. Every single time you look at your could do, should do, will do list, success list every day, what is the one thing on this list that such by doing that, everything else will become easier and necessary? So he says for your personal life, what is my one thing? He just gives you some ideas here to add clarity. What's the one thing I could do this week to discover or affirm my life's purpose? What is the one thing I could do this week to discover my life's purpose? What is the one thing I could do in 90 days to get in the physical shape I want? What's the one thing I could do today to strengthen my spiritual faith? What's the one thing I can do to practice the guitar 20 minutes a day, get 5 strokes on my golf game, learn to paint? You have to decide what it is you want, and it doesn't have to be only one thing you want. It's in different categories, and then you break that down to what's the one thing I could do such that by doing that, that thing will become easier and unnecessary. Say you wanted to paint. Well, you've got to probably buy some paint or get a brush or find a place or take a class or read a book or watch a video. So what is that one thing? As soon as your brain starts working on it, you'll come up with it. You may already know it. What's the one thing with your family for fun and rewarding experiences? What's the one thing we can do to improve our marriage? What's the one thing to spend more quality with my family? What's the one thing to support our children's schoolwork? What's the one thing to make the vacation the best vacation ever, the Christmas the best Christmas ever? So let's say you said, what's the one thing I could do right now to make it the best Christmas ever? I'm talking about to be able to afford a present. Is buying a present the best Christmas ever? Well, maybe for some people, you know, but it's only you can answer, and all Gary's doing is giving you some ideas to be able to go through the exercise. What's the one thing from your job on 220? What's the one thing that you could bring to your work team such that by doing it, everything else would become unnecessary? What's the one thing the team could do to grow the company forward? What's the one thing that your family as a team could do? On the planning of the next few months, he's on 221. What's the one thing we could do right now to accomplish our goals ahead of schedule and under budget? You know, you got to get, like, basically what Gary teaches us is you take your general idea and get smaller and get smaller and get smaller and get smaller, and then back to the main page where it's all the categories. You cannot only have a business category. You cannot only have a personal category. It's all of yourself as a person. Bold teaches us to grow. When we do our growth plan, it is not only our money, right, Donna? It's not about the money. The money just makes everything easier and unnecessary. So the one thing might make a real difference. Your nonprofit. What's the one thing that you could make a difference with at your school? What's the one thing you could do to make a difference at your place of worship? What's the one thing you could do to make an influence on your community? At the bottom of this page, the one thing forces you to think big, work things through to create a list, prioritize that list so geometric progression can happen, hammer away at the first thing, the one thing that starts it. Then momentum can happen. He says on page 223, be prepared to live a new life, and remember that the secret to extraordinary results is to ask very big and specific questions that lead you to one very small, tightly focused answer. If you try to do everything, you can wind up with nothing. If you try to do just one thing, the right one thing, you could wind up with everything you ever wanted. The one thing is real. If you put it to work, it will work. Don't delay. Ask yourself the question, what's the one thing I can do right now to start using the one thing in my life? So what's the one thing I can do right now to implement the one thing book, right? So in my life, so that by doing that, everything else will be easier or unnecessary, and make doing the answer your first one thing. And Gary always finishes what he writes with onward. Yay, I love it.
Good stuff, good stuff.
What's your closing comments, guys? What's your next step? Earl, what are your thoughts from this? Earl's in the room. Rhonda's in the room. I'm in the room.
Need to change my life.
So Earl wants to affect change in his life. Yeah. So maybe your one thing is to start with what would life look like if you could imagine it, right? That exercise right there.
Yep.
And then that helps you to clarify it.
Mm-hmm.
Identifying your purpose is one that I found after I read the book was my first time I did it, one thing. So I'm very clear, like when I decided to become team leader, was it in alignment with my purpose? I had to do some of that questioning. Rhonda, you have any one thing from your?
Well, overall, my one thing is to crush my limiting beliefs.
Crush your limiting beliefs. You got to identify what your limiting beliefs are and then work backwards on it, right?
Yeah.
I love that. I think the affirmations and the tools to battle those, Jane and I were talking about that earlier this morning. Anyone else wrap up here? I know most of you are on mute. Mary Sinclair, are you listening?
She can't talk.
She can't talk. Earl's saying she doesn't have a speaker or a microphone.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Is that Craig?
Yeah. Hey. For me, my one thing is definitely to time block to lead gen for myself, starting out, just to set that time aside to lead generate.
Yeah, the word time blocking, so many of us resist it, and yet it is the only way, right, to get what you want.
Yeah.
You
If you don't force yourself to.
It's the only way to be on purpose.
Yeah, and I like how specific it is. It's just like you do that one thing, and then you go and master it, and then you move on to the next one thing that gets you forward in your life or your business or whatever you're
That's right.
trying to achieve. So I like to focus on that. It's a clear path to success, honestly. And Marty Miller's class really brings that to light. Yesterday.
Marty Miller's, you'll see it in the Keller Williams content over and over and over. Now that you speak the same language, you'll hear it in almost everything that you do. The people who are certainly trained within Keller Williams, because Gary's been explaining this to us since the beginning. And if you go back over any course, you'll see it, right? It's living your life by design.
Yeah.
And it starts with getting clear about what you want, and then it's putting that in your calendar, and then it's staying true to your calendar and adjusting accordingly. So anyone else before we close up? I still have a few minutes.
What's the next book club?
The next book club is going to be Shift. So what I want to do is give you guys a respite on book club. So I'm not going to start Shift until after Fierce Conversations, and I have it already on the calendar. I think it's maybe 3 weeks. I'll have to look, 2 or 3 weeks from today. And that gives you some time to work on some of your one thing purpose exercise if you want it. I would bring a one thing course class if you wanted it. You guys have to help me know what you'd like. And then we'll move over to the Shift, which will go right in alignment with where you're at. I think it'll be a good series to do MREA for those that you were on that, then the one thing, and now we'll tie that into the Shift material, because in case you guys don't know it, you are in a Shift. So sometimes it's a shift within our own worlds, right? I think somebody was saying that to me this morning. All right, well, unless you have anything else, Donna, you got any last words? You may not be.
Nope, just go figure out your one thing. That's hard. It's very hard.
It is hard, but let's do a purpose workbook exercise. I can help you.
But yeah, and pull your 411s, that helps too.
Yes, I'll add something for this on the calendar. And then for you guys, as one thing on your listings, today's Ninja class is about your 16-step seller process. Next week, there's a listings class on taking your KW Command listing presentation and putting it where you want it. So your dominoes each week, get clear on what is going to propel you to the next level. What's that first domino to get you there? sometimes it's time blocking for the next domino, right?
Right.
And then get an accountability partner. Craig, I suggest you send someone your time blocking calendar. How
Yeah.
are you going to fit in having a baby and everything else you do to achieve your goals?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm telling you, the thing that helped me the most was that Ninja planner on my time blocking and my accountability.
Yeah, the
Because I was watching
on
it.
paper planner is every single person who teaches about achieving your dreams talks about your planner. There's no way to do it on your phone and online. It has to be that you can look at it and adjust it thing. We all use the online, but the people who have extraordinary lives almost always will talk about their paper planners. So give that
Oh,
some
yeah.
thought.
Way much
Outland
better.
has them if you don't have Ninja. Start thinking about
Exactly. Just write
2020
down your
because
50.
yeah, what she's
Sorry,
saying
Anna.
is keeping it in front of you and tangible amongst all the distractions. So we'll bring some content to the calendar for that, and you guys contemplate being the best version of yourselves. And we'll touch base in a few weeks on the next book.
Thanks, Anna.
Okay, see you
Thank
guys.
you.
It's great.
Let's make sure.
4 minutes early. Uh-huh. Some of them had this listing presentation.